Hello. Hi. Finally, welcome to the Taurus Use and Design Masterclass. Sorry about that. We've had some technical difficulties this morning, or I guess this afternoon for you East Coasters, and we're just now getting started. This is going to be recorded, so if you need to hop off because it may go past the original time because we did get such a late start, it will be recorded for you. All right. Again, welcome. This is the Taurus Use and Design Masterclass. We're hosted by Lightware in conjunction with Rave Launch. My name is Leslie Cook. I'm the head of training for the Americas of Lightware. And I've also got with me today Allison Stuberu. She is a field sales engineer, and she is going to be our technical expert who's going to be answering your questions. You guys should have a Q&A widget as well as a networking chat there. So she's going to be monitoring both of those. So please put any questions that you might have in one of those two areas. I will be stopping periodically every 15 or 20 minutes when we finish a section, and we will answer any of those questions that have come up aloud to make sure that everybody understands. So if you think of any questions, please be sure to go ahead and put those in there. One little caveat though, if you're doing a specific project with us and you need some of those kinds of questions, I'm going to make sure that you get mine and Allison's email and contact information at the end of this, and she can help you with those kind of questions post-webinar and really go into them and help you out with line drawings and anything else that you might need. All right, so let's start jumping into it here. So what will you learn today? You're going to learn about how Lightware and Taurus and the use of an open API allows us to play well with pretty much every other device and manufacturer out there. You're also going to learn how Taurus is going to be able to fix most of the problems in your room, and how specifically we're going to use USB-C because USB-C solves about 99.9% of your issues. You're also going to learn that we have a Taurus for that, and where to go when you have any type of USB related questions, because we are your USB-C expert. So specifically today, we'll start with talking a little bit about why Lightware and why USB-C. Then we're also going to do a quick overview on some USB basics. Now, this is going to be a very quick overview on connectors, some USB-C capabilities, a little bit about cables, topology, and then making sure you understand the difference between a host and a hub. But that is going to be a very basic review. If you really want to learn all about USB-C, we have a masterclass for that I'll tell you about in just a second. After that USB basics review, we're going to talk about how you can handle your BYOD rooms, bring your own device rooms. We're going to talk about how you can handle any type of extension issues that you may or may not be having. We're going to talk about how you can deal with your audio control issues. We've also got some new products that are going to help you do an extended desktop, as well as large auditoriums and conference rooms. Then we're going to finish it up talking about room control and automation, specifically about our Lightware Advanced Room Control Automation software, which makes room control and automation a breeze. I mentioned that USB Masterclass. We do have another section coming up on March 11th. We actually offer this the second Tuesday of each month. So today we're just going to be doing a very quick and brief review. But if you want to truly get a deep dive into what USB is, as well as USB-C, and learn all of the different topics you're seeing up here, especially get a really good deep dive into USB topology, I highly recommend you do that. That you come to this class. If you can't do March, come to April's class. Before we get started, I'm going to mention one more quick thing, and that is the Avixa RU credits, because I know a lot of you, that's why you are here. You'll see you have the availability to get a CTS, a CTSD, or a CTSI credit. There is a quiz that we're going to give you a link to that is a 10-question quiz that you will need to complete by Friday end of day. And once you complete that quiz, we will mail out your certificate that you can then can turn into a VIXA for those credits. I do ask you that you give us at least 2 weeks, so we will get these certificates out to you by Friday, March 14th. So you do need to complete that quiz. Now, for some of you out there who get a little freaked out about quizzes, do not be freaked out. This is a very simple quiz. We're not trying to trip you up. We're honestly just trying to make sure that I am conveying the information to you in a way that you are understanding it. And I will mention a couple of times here and there that this may or may not be on the quiz and give you some hints. All right. Now that we've got all those logistics out of the way, let's get started with why Lightware and why USB-C. All right, first of all, when we're talking about why Lightware, one of the big reasons is we have an open API. And that truly means that we play well with basically everyone out there. Even people who are notorious for not playing well with others are going to be able to work with our equipment. And on top of that, working well with others and being able to access that open API to make that happen, you're also going to have access to be able to manage a bunch of different things that you may have not been able to manage in the past. You're also going to be able to control a lot of things you might not have been able to control in the past, and you're going to be able to do all sorts of monitoring. If there is a port on the Taurus, you can control and you can monitor that port, whether it's just regular ports like your Ethernet, your USB, and your RS-232 that we're seeing up here on the screen, or even some of these kind of controls for specifically for infrared or GPIO or CEC or relay switches. All of those things you're going to be able to control with free software that you'll be able to use. And that free software is going to be the Lightware Device Controller. And you can actually go to our website, and I'll make sure that that link gets into the chat at some point, and you can download this software absolutely for free. Now, while I'm going to be showing you throughout this PowerPoint, I'm going to actually be showing you different LDC screens. That's what we call it for short, Lightware Device Controller, or LDC, so that you can see just how much you can control in there. However, you do not always have to download that software if you don't want to. This is completely accessible through a web browser if you need to do it that way as well. And that's going to be my first hint that might be on the test. So yes, you can download it, but yes, you can also access that from a web browser. So you don't have to absolutely have it downloaded. All right, so now that we know a little bit about why Lightware, let's talk about why USB-C. And the big thing here is this is now the new standard. One of the big things is the European Union has mandated that USB-C be the standard for basically all the tech stuff across all of the European Union. And pretty much all the big tech manufacturers out there have embraced it, including Apple now. So you've got your older model phones that are still going to have your not Lightware, your Lightning connectors. But anything that has come out, I want to say since 2022, might have been 2021, has had a USB-C connection. I gotta be honest, drives me a little nuts because I have a 13 that's on a Lightning, and then I have an iPad that is an M1 and is on a USB-C, and without fail, I always manage to grab the wrong cable. But this is the standard. This is where everybody's going. This is what is on laptops now to connect to power and data and all of that. And there is a reason for that. And that is because the USB-C cable is able to do that data transmission. It's able to do your video and audio, and it's able to do power delivery, which is going to give you this type of perfect room setup where anybody can walk into a room, whether they have a PC or a Mac, and they can plug into that USB-C cable, and they can have power to their laptop so that it's not dying halfway through a presentation. They can put their PowerPoint up on the displays. They can use any microphones or speakers in the room. But I'm sure everyone here knows that that's a little bit easier said than done, because what happens a lot of time is something that looks much similar to this, where you end up getting this bottleneck over here, and not everyone is able to access everything that's in the room. And it ends up looking like this, where you've got one person who is logged in to a meeting and everybody else is kind of standing behind that person trying to watch the meeting. And that's just not conducive to good meetings. So that's where we want to get to this. And this is where Lightware and Taurus and USB-C are going to truly shine, because you're going to get rid of that bottleneck. You're going to be able to have the setup of your dreams out there. So we're going to show you how we're going to do that using the Taurus line of products. And we're going to deep dive into all of the Taurus products and answer any of your Taurus questions. But before that, I want to lay some groundwork and some different basics and do a quick USB basics review, just to make sure that we all have the same knowledge and vernacular before we start jumping in and talking about Taurus. So the first thing I want to do is talk through the different connectors here. So what we've got here, if you were looking over on the left-hand side of the screen, you are looking at a USB 2.0 high-speed connector. Over on the right, you are looking at your super speed USB 3.x connectors. The big difference here is the number of pins. That USB standard, that 2.0, is the OG, and it started out with your 4 pins, two for data and 2 for your ground and power delivery. Because you only had the 2 channels, the USB 2.0s are half duplex, meaning they can only send or receive information one at a time. They can't send and receive at the same time. Jumping out to USB 3.x, which again is going to be our super speed connectors over here on the right. And what we did with, or not we, but what the standard, what the USB standard did with the 3.x was add 5 additional pins to that standard. And those 5 additional pins, A, are backwards compatible to USB 2.0, and B, give you that super speed technology, which is going to give you 5 or 10 gigabits of data transfer speed. And most importantly, because we now have those additional channels, we're talking about full duplex, meaning they can send and receive at the same time. A couple of visual clues here to help you when you are looking at a cable or a port or something like that. Usually if it is white or it is black, like over here on our left-hand side, that is going to let you know that that is going to be a USB 2.0 connector, and that it's using that USB 2.0 high speed. If you see any type of blue or pretty much any other color, that's going to let you know. Blue is typically the color that is a super speed connector, and that is going to have the 5 pins. And the other way to do it, of course, is to just look in there. If you look right over here on the right-hand side, I can see the 4 original pins on the bottom, and I can see the 5 pins on the top. Now, I did mention these are backwards compatible. That's going to depend on your ports, though. So, for example, if you had a newer computer with a 3.x port on it, you would absolutely be able to plug in this older USB 2.0 cable into that port. You would not be able, if you had an older computer with a USB 2.0 port, be able to put this super speed type B connector in it. And that is because on the type B connectors, as well as your micro connectors, your minis, and all of those, they added a little bit of extra space in there to house those additional pins. So that's what this little hump right down here is, which means it's just not going to fit into an older port. If it fit in there, it would absolutely be able to do that data transmission. So the reason I really want you to be able to understand this is so that you can really understand how the USB-C now truly shines, because the USB-C goes from the 9 pins of our super speed type connectors up to 25 4 different pins. And not only is it full duplex, but there are 2 different channels of full duplex. So you have 2 channels going full duplex. And this allows you to get up to that super speed 3.Gen 2x2, which can get you up to 20 gigabits per second, which is going to be way higher than your super speed type A connectors, which aren't going to be able to do more than your 10 gigabits because they're not going to have those 2 full duplex channels. And if you're wanting to get that 4K 60 on your devices, you're going to need this USB-C to be able to do that. So let's dive into that a little bit more and talk about a USB-C. And you'll see there I have it full featured capabilities in quotation marks. And that's because not all cables are created equal. Some of them are pretty bad out there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the cable section. But I just want you to know that these things that I'm talking about right here are going to be on a cable that is considered fully featured. So they're going to have both of those data transfer types. They're going to have the super speed and the high speed. That USB-C is going to be able to do both of those transfer types simultaneously if needed. It's going to have the different power and ground channels. And because it's got way more power and ground channels than those USB-As or USB-Bs, this is where you're going to be able to get power delivery up to 100 watts and actually keep more than just an HID device going. You can keep an actual laptop going. So somebody can be doing a presentation and not have to worry about their laptop dying. There's a couple of configuration channels in that USB-C as well. And then there's some sideband use, which is going to give you your alternate modes. And this is very, very important when we start talking about wanting to get that 4K 60. So let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about video delivery and using those alternate modes. When you can use an alternate mode with a USB-C cable, you can do it in either a 2-lane or a 4-lane mode. And depending on how you do that, you get different benefits and different not necessarily bad features, but you just have to kind of choose one or the other. And this will make a little bit more sense in just a second. If you want to get 4K 60, you need to do DisplayPort alternate mode, 4-lane DisplayPort alternate mode. That's, I went back the wrong way. That's what's going to give you that 4K 60. However, by going into that 4-lane DisplayPort alternate mode, you lose the capability to do USB 3.x transmission. So you have to choose between doing data transfer at that super speed rate, and then your video quality is going to be limited to 4K 30. Or you can go ahead and use the 4-lane mode and get that 4K 60. So that's really going to be up to you. But what's really, really most important here is that you have a device that can let you make that choice. Because a lot of times out there, it's going to be whatever the default of the computer is. And that's where Taurus is going to come into the picture and truly shine for you. So what you are looking at here is a screen of our LDC. Again, that's our Lightware device controller. This is the free software that you can download that allows you to control our Taurus line of products. So let me explain to you what we're looking at right here. So first of all, you can see right up here at the top, we are looking at a UCX 4x3 TPX TX20. So this device that we are looking at in the LDC is one of our Taurus products. It's in our TPX line of Taurus products, which means that it is our extension solution. So it's both a transmitter, it comes in pairs, transmitters and receivers. So here we are looking at a 4x3 TPX transmitter. Now, if we look right here, you'll see that we are on the cross points menu, and you have several different menus, and we're going to take a look at those different menus throughout this presentation. But right here, we're looking at two separate different cross points. These top cross points are our video cross points, and then down here is our audio cross points. You also have USB cross points, and we'll be looking at those in just a little while. So when I say cross points, what I mean here is because this is a 4x3, we're looking at the 4 sources across the top, because a 4x3 can have up to 4 device sources. So that's 4, it could be 2 laptops and maybe a room PC and an Apple TV. And then the 3 part of it is the displays. So this has 3 different displays, though technically one of these I'm sorry, I misspoke, honestly. 2 of these are for displays. One of these is the out that goes to the receiver, which is on the display. And depending on what you've got going on there, we have some different options with our receivers that we'll show you in just a little bit. So right now, I am actually in this picture clicked on this USB-C 1. So this is the USB-C input 1 on this 4x3. And that is bringing up this configuration for that USB-C input 1 over here. And then I can come over here and I can see my display port link. And you'll see you have the ability to change it between 4-lane and 2-lane mode, depending on what you are trying to do. And kind of just to reiterate that here, so depending on what you're trying to do, if you're doing that, you want to prefer that video and get that 4K 60, you're going to want to do that 4-lane. But if you're wanting to get that 3.1 or 3.2 or 3.gen 2x2, you're going to want to be in that 2-lane mode. All right, I feel like that was a lot. So I am going to actually pause there for a second and see if Allison has had any questions. And Allison?
I haven't seen a whole lot really in the chat. It's a little easier if you guys actually drop it in what I think is the networking chat, which is that big white square that we've all kind of been talking in, as opposed to the purple one, because the purple one kind of puts them a little out of order. So feel free to drop them in there, and I'll answer them as quickly as possible. I did also want to point out, Leslie did mention LDC, the Lightware Device Controller, and how we use it to configure and connect to Taurus. I did also want to point out that is how we also connect to and configure all of our devices. So something cool that we do is we just have the one software to rule them all. I'm filled with Lord of the Rings references. So you really only have to download the one software. Anything you get from us, you'll be able to connect to that way. That's all I have. Please don't be shy about questions. If you have a question, somebody else probably has the same one. So don't be shy.
Yep. All right. Moving right along. So let's talk a little bit about USB-C and what all it can do for you. So as Allison mentioned, USB-C is definitely the one cable to rule them all, because before you used to need to have that HDMI, you needed the USB cables, you needed Ethernet cables, and you needed power cables. Now all of that comes through with your one USB-C cable. And really important here is, at least to me, is charging. I've been doing this, I've been training now for 20 plus years, and I will admit on more than one occasion I've gone into a training session and I've been mid PowerPoint, and all of a sudden I look down and my laptop says that low battery and that I need to plug it in, and I have to just stop class, send everybody to break, even if it's not break time, run to wherever my desk was, usually get under my desk and pull that cable out, and then run back to the training room to hopefully have plugged my laptop in before it died, so I don't have to restart it and then have the PowerPoint say that the PowerPoint didn't save correctly and all of that. With USB-C, those days are gone. My laptop is charging constantly. I never have to worry about that. And in fact, the only time I have to worry about that is when I've accidentally, and it's usually my cats have jumped up here and my cable came a little loose and I didn't pay attention. But those days are gone. USB-C truly helps with that. And with Taurus, you are able to truly control that. So here we are looking at another LDC screen. This time we are on the settings menu. We are still looking at our Taurus 4x3 TPX. That's what we're going to be looking at today on pretty much all of our screenshots. And this time we are on we're on settings, and then we're on the power tab. And you can see here that you have several different options. Each one of the USB-C ports is configured separately, and you can configure the reserved power, and you can configure the allocation and the allocated power. And just to give you a little bit better idea here, so this is what we're talking about. You have these two ports on, it's going to depend on how many ports the Taurus you buy does, but most of them have two USB-C inputs, and you're able to change each of those independently and say exactly where that power allocation is going. And you can also do that with the USB port that is on all of our Taurus products. So we're going to talk in just a few minutes about the difference between a hub and a host switch. A Taurus is both of those. It has a hub and it is a host switch. And on the hub part of it, you are able to go in and say how much power is going out. This is a USB hub, so now we're back down to that USB 2.0 standard most of the time. So you're going to be looking at your 5 volts to power something like a mouse, a keyboard, or something like that. So again, you're able to truly get in there and control all of those different peripherals and how much power goes out to each of them. And you can even kind of go in, if you want to, through our open API and learn how to toggle those if you have some kind of situation with like WebEx and webcams on Cisco codecs, or if you maybe needed to go in there and boot up a device. All right. It is time to talk about USB-C cables. I know I just stopped for a break, but I just want to double check and make sure nobody else popped up before I move right along.
Timing, because I just started typing some answers. So first question, somebody asked if the TPX receivers were, oh my God, words. The TPX receivers support having a USB camera bar attached to it and still deliver video to a display. The answer is yes. That was exactly what we had in mind when it was designed. So most people do, in fact, use a USB camera bar on the receiver side while they connect with their BYOD to the transmitter side. Somebody asks, if someone plugs in a USB-C cable that does not allow for 2-lane or 4-lane alternative modes, what will the software display? I've never come across anything that does not allow video transfer over DisplayPort alt mode. You don't have to install any drivers for it. I've seen it used on iPhones, Samsung cell phones, laptops, tablets, etc. So the answer is
no. Allison, I think the question is if it's a cheap cable, are there cheap cables that don't do 2-lane or 4-lane mode? And I think we're going to jump in and answer that question shortly for you. If I'm understanding that, I think that's what he was saying.
Yep, I just have poor reading comprehension skills. So the answer is you won't get anything if you use a bad USB-C cable. You might get USB control, but you're not going to get video if you have a bad cable.
But no, nothing's going to pop up. But I'm going to go through some different things that can help you with that. Is that it?
Oh, sorry. Last one. I'm sorry, I'm typing. Somebody also asked how many hops are there on Taurus products. So they're all going to be, well, did you want me to save this for you or should I spoil it?
You can go ahead and tell them.
Okay. So standalone box is going to have 2 hops when you're using that USB-C port. And same thing goes actually for the UCX TPX, which is what makes it so special. So it's going to be 1 hop per box, basically, 1 for each hub plugged in there.
Yep. All right. All right, then let's start talking about USB-C cables, and we'll answer some of those questions that just came up. So the USB-C cable is truly going to be able to help you because it's going to be able to replace all these other cables that you used to have, your USB, your Thunderbolts, your HDMI, your display ports, your headphone jacks, your power cables, all of it. And what's really cool about USB-C cables, at least to me, is the blind mating and identical cable ends. I don't know about you guys, but Murphy's Law, anytime I have a USB-A and I go to plug it into something, it won't fit. So then I pull it back out, I flip it over, I put it back in, it won't fit. By this point, I'm usually kind of bending over to what it is to kind of look and see where it's at. And then without fail, I flip it back over to the way it was first and I put it in there and it fits. And that's annoying. You don't have to worry about that with USB-C cables because it's absolute blind mating. It does not matter if they're upside down or not, and the cable ends are identical. You don't have one end that's a micro and then one end that's a USB-A. Both ends are going to be USB-C. I also think they happen to be pretty slim and sleek. They're robust. They can do up to 10,000 mating cycles. They're backwards compatible. So again, this is going to be able to go all the way back to your USB 2.0 standards. And they can support power up to 240 watts. There's a caveat on that. Right now, the only cables on the market can do 100 watts. I have been told, though, that we are working on one that can do 240 watts and that should be out by the end of the year. But right now on the market, 100 watts is going to be the largest amount that you're going to be able to do on power delivery. So when we're talking about a full-featured USB-C cable, there are certain things that have to be there. Minimum requirements for someone to call a cable full-featured are to be able to do that backwards compatibility and do that USB 2.0, to be able to give at least 3 amps of current and 60 watts of power, and an E-marker is optional. I get asked a lot, what is an E-marker? An E-marker is a little chip that's in the end there of the USB-C and basically lets them know that, hey, we're adhering to this standard, which is going to be that middle column there. So it's going to be at least USB. They're going to be able to do the backwards compatibility to USB 2.0, as well as go up to 20 gigabits per second. It's going to be able to do 3, maybe even 5 amps of current, up to 240 watts of power. It's going to be able to do those alternate modes, and that E-marker is mandatory. So if you're buying a cable and it doesn't say it has an E-marker, I would wonder if maybe that's, I would say that the chances of it being able to do DisplayPort are probably not going to be very good for you. Some optional features that a USB-C may have is going to be the ability to do Thunderbolt or USB 4, which is going to give you up to 40 gigabits per second, and that one, an E-marker, is mandatory as well. So I supplied some docs, and I believe they're on the landing page. I'm not exactly sure how you guys download them, but I gave you guys a comparison chart and a testing guide. So the testing guide will walk you through how to buy a cable and test it and see what it does and whether or not it does the things that it's supposed to do. And then there's also a comparison chart because our engineers went out, and that it is about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years old. So if there's some newer cables on the market, they're not going to be on there. But they basically went through and tested everything and put it all in a chart for you. So you can go look at cables you've bought, see if they're on the chart, and then the chart, it's a chart, and it'll tell you exactly what features that cable has and does not have. Or if you don't want to have to go through all of that about seeing whether or not your cable works, you can always just buy Lightware cables, because all of our cables are going to be able to do all of that. And we have a ton of different cable options out there for you if you are interested. We have copper cables in 1, 2, or 3 meters. We have micro coax cables in 4 and 5 meters. We have active optical cables in 8 and 10 meters. And those active optical cables are going to be able to do that 100 watts of power all the way out to 10 meters. And I believe, and I've got a 50-50 chance here. Allison might have to correct me. They are 1 hop if you are doing USB 2.0, and they are 0 hops if you're doing USB 3.1. Did I say that correct, or did I switch them?
That was correct.
Ah, yeah. Okay, good. I have a little, sometimes my brain switches things. So we have all of those different types of cables available out there for you. All right. Next is USB topology, the speed run. But were there any questions on cables before we start topology?
Where that chart you mentioned was, and I actually don't have an answer for them because I don't know where it is either.
I don't know if Emily can jump in and answer that for us or not, but definitely you guys will also be getting an email from me probably by Wednesday or Thursday, where I will send you a link to the PowerPoint, and I will include all of that stuff in there as well, and the link to the quiz and all of that, so that you have all of it. All right. Or we'll see what we can find out. All right. So were there any other questions, Allison?
Nope. I am checking that little purple chat at the top as well. So it looks like there aren't any new ones. So that was it.
All right. All right. Now let's talk about USB topology. Hold on. I'm reading something real quick from Emily. I can get a link to the doc and have it sent. All right, sorry about that. All right, let's talk about USB topology. Sorry, I'm trying to speed two things at one time. All right, so this is going to be a speed run through USB topology. I am going to pitch one more time that you guys come on out to our USB Masterclass, because we really deep dive into USB topology in that class. And this is something that is becoming a pretty big issue out there in rooms. And I think it's something that we kind of all knew, but it really hasn't been an issue. But now it's becoming an issue because of USB-C and its utilization, and because of the amount of data that a lot of these new devices with all their AI and stuff is taking up. All right, so let's talk about USB topology. So when we're talking about USB topology, we need to remember that it is a pyramid. At the top of the USB pyramid is always going to be the laptop or the PC, the room PC, the laptop, the MacBook. That is the top of your pyramid. Your pyramid cannot be more than 7 tiers. And again, laptop at the very top. In this example right here, our laptop is actually taking up the top 2 tiers. Not all laptops are going to take up 2 tiers. Some only take up 1. Your newer ones, though, are starting to take up more, and definitely your MacBooks are always going to take up 2 tiers. Into that laptop, we have plugged in a docking station, and this docking station is also taking up 2 tiers. Because that docking station is giving us 4 extra ports, here's how we start getting that pyramid shape. Because into that 4 port on the same tier, because they only take up, because they're I/O devices, we can put both that webcam and that keyboard, bringing us out to that 5th tier. So this would work just fine, that we wouldn't have any problems or anything like that, because we're only at 5 tiers. And again, we cannot go over 7 tiers. But this is not really the kind of thing that you guys have to deal with in a room. This is a little bit more reminiscent of what I am sure you see. So this is where you can see that very, very quickly you can run out of tiers. Again, with this example, we have our laptop taking up the top 2 tiers and that same docking station. So we have 4 out of 7 tiers gone, and we haven't even added any peripherals to this topology. Into that docking station, we have a USB extension cable. We put this on here specifically because not all cables are going to be passive. Some will add hops. So you will need to find out whether or not that cable adds a hop or not, or whether or not it's just a passive USB pass-through, basically. Into that, we have a 7-port hub, which is 2 tiers, which brings us down to that 6th tier where we're just now putting in our first peripheral, which is a Rally Bar Mini, which takes up 2 tiers. This Rally Bar Mini is not going to work. Now, the question everybody is probably asking is, what do you mean it's not going to work? Well, it depends. There's not a straightforward answer. It's basically just kind of chaos starts happening. If you've got a Mac at the top of that pyramid, the Mac's not even going to be able to see that rally bar. It'll be like it doesn't exist. It won't be able to find it. It won't be able to see it. If you have a PC, there's a couple of different things that could happen. It could do that really annoying thing where it keeps connecting and disconnecting, or it keeps asking you to download the driver software and making that dinging on your computer over and over again. It could allow you to use that rally bar and you start a call, and then 5 minutes in, it stops working, and then all of a sudden you can't access it again. It could start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. So it might make it through one meeting, and then the next one only make it through 5 minutes of the meeting. It kind of just depends. And that's because this pyramid you're going to have too much latency once you get past that 7th tier. And with that latency, sometimes it might be a little slower and you might be able to access it for a second, and then other times it's just not going to, and it just won't work. So not clear cut what it means when it says it won't work. It's just going to be acting erratically. So basically, the other thing here to kind of think about is, again, these USB networks are limited by latency, and they have a time budget of 380 nanoseconds, and that's what's causing that whole latency issue. So you cannot go over 7 tiers, and you can technically have up to 126 devices in your pyramid. Now, how many pyramids do you have? It's going to depend on your laptop or your PC. Each port will be its own topology, its own pyramid. So if you have a laptop with 2 different USB ports, each one of those is going to be its own topology. I am going to say one other thing. I have said 7 tiers over and over and over again, and that is the answer. And there is definitely, I'm pretty sure, a question about that on the quiz. So 7 tiers is going to be, you cannot go past 7 tiers. However, we are seeing some rooms where they have issues starting around 6 tiers now. And again, it has to deal with that latency and the fact that some of these newer devices, especially with all the AI and all the different features and everything, are just taking up more of that bandwidth, more of that time budget. So you might be like, oh, I'm right at 7 tiers, but you're still seeing that erratic behavior. And you know that you have like some really high thing, expensive new AI everything type of peripherals, that might be your issue. So to kind of finish this off, I'm just going to give you guys a couple of real world examples, and then we'll see if you have any questions. But here's what this might look like. I'm going to show you 2 different examples here. We're going to see what this looks like with a PC, and then we're going to see how it makes a difference when we bring a Mac into this same exact setup. So our PC is going to take up 1 hop. Our passive USB cable is not going to take up a hop. Our USB host hub switching is going to take up 2 hops, because in this case we are using a Taurus, and all of our Tauruses are going to take up a total of 2 hops, even if that's a transmitter and receiver, total of 2 hops. Into that, we have got a couple of different extenders, bringing us out to 7 hops by the time we bring in 7 tops by the time we bring in that Cisco device down there at the end. And these zeros are assuming passive cables here. So if we have this exact same room and now we bring in that MacBook, oh, I didn't mean for it to go by that fast, but you get the idea. Now, because this MacBook takes up 2 tiers, we are now at 8 hops by the time we get down to this Cisco device, and it's just not going to work. That MacBook is not going to be able to see that Cisco device. All right. Any questions on any of that before we move on to hubs and host switches?
Haven't seen anything new pop up in the chat, but in case anybody missed it, those links that we were discussing earlier are up. Thank you, Emily. So you have the USB-C comparison chart and the cable testing report and the training catalog and stuff are all in there. So just keep an eye out for those.
Thank you. Awesome. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about a hub and a host switch, because it's very important that you understand the difference between these two when you're out there trying to purchase them for your room. So the first thing is a hub, and a hub is something that adds additional USB ports to a device, usually a laptop or a PC. So most laptops or PCs have 1, maybe 2. Some of the newer ones have 3. I don't think I've seen some with more than 3 USB ports. I don't know about you. That's not enough. I've got a mic, I've got a keyboard, I've got a speaker, I've got the webcam. It's just not enough. So you have to get a port to be able to add additional peripherals on to that device. So that's going to allow you to add additional things like those webcams, those microphones, the keyboards, and the mice. Now, a host switch does something completely different. A host switch is actually a mechanical device that switches between different hosts. So that's going to be your PCs and your laptops, and that allows them to have access to those hub ports and those peripherals that are into that hub. Now, when we're talking about a switch, it is a mechanical switch, meaning if you truly had all 4 of those ports filled up, you would only be able to have one computer at a time have access to those peripherals. You could not have computer number 1 have access to the web camera and then computer number 2 have access to the keyboard and the mouse. It's all or nothing because it's a true mechanical switch. And what's really cool when we start relaying this to Taurus is that because it's a switch, we have the ability for you to be able to set up auto switching. So again, we are now looking at our LDC screen. We're back on to our cross points. Again, we're back on our video and audio. Before I had clicked on this USB-C input 1, but this time I've clicked on my output 1. So this is my output going out, and I can come over here and I can see my auto select settings. You'll see here you have 3 different types of auto select settings that you can choose. First is just to disable it and basically not have auto select. Next is first detect, and that means that the first signal that it detects, it stays with that. So maybe if you had a room PC and that room PC was supposed to be where they're supposed to do all their presentations and everything from, you could have it on first detect, and it detects that room PC, and then if anybody else walks into the room and plugs into that Taurus, it's going to stay with that room PC. The next option that you have is going to be last detect. Last detect is going to do the exact opposite. Every time it detects a new audio signal, it's going to automatically switch to that person and let that new, or not audio signal, anytime it receives a video signal, it's going to see that video signal and it's going to automatically give all those peripherals and everything over to that newest signal. So last detect is the one that typically most people use in a room because the room's not always being used by the same people. You may have one group in there earlier in the day and then another group that afternoon. So last detect allows you to say whoever is that last detected video signal is the one that is going to get access to all of the peripherals. Now, You'll see also if you come down here that not only can you do those auto select settings, you can also disable any of these ports if you want by clicking right here. They're all green with check marks, so that means that all of these are enabled, but you could disable them if you wanted to. And you can also set up different priority levels, with 1 being the highest priority and 100 being the lowest priority, so that if you want to, you can literally get as complicated in there as you want. And we'll talk a little bit about the welcome screen once we jump into Taurus a little bit more. But the other thing I want to show you, so again, right here, we're on our video and audio cross points. Now let's take a look at that USB hub. So we're still on our cross points tab, but now we have clicked on our USB here, and we've clicked on our USB hub. And you'll see here with our USB hub, we also have our own auto select settings. So we can say, what do we want this USB hub to do? Do we want to disable auto select, and whatever we put on here through the cross points is what it does? Or do we want it to follow video, which means that whatever we put on this screen right here is what this one is going to do. And then we also have our first detect and our last detect, just like we had with our video and audio cross points. Typically, most people go with the follow video because you've taken the time to set up what you want as far as auto switching for the display. And then for the peripherals, you come here and just say, hey, follow that video. But again, you do have the ability when you are following that video to say which port. So am I following the video on port 1 or port 2? And then again, you have the ability to disable any of those ports if you want, and to set up those different priority levels as well. All right. Any questions before we really start jumping into the meat of this and talking about Taurus?
I'm not seeing any new ones in the bottom chat. Let me just double check the top chat as well, but I don't see any new ones.
All right. Then let's start talking about Taurus and how Taurus is going to take all of those things that we just talked about and how Taurus applies them to your rooms and make sure rooms work the way that they're intended to work. The first thing that I want to talk to you about is the fact that we have a Taurus for that. You're going to see as we go through the rest of this presentation that if you have a case scenario, we have a Taurus that's going to be able to do that. And the first set of Tauruses that we have are our UCX HC models. These are going to be our all-in-one room box solutions, and these are going to be for your small to medium-size huddle rooms, and we'll talk about them more in depth in just a minute. Our next type of Taurus is going to be our Taurus TPX line, and this is going to be for your extension issues, and it's going to be able to, again, extend those signals out for you by using a transmitter and a receiver. Our next set of Taurus products is going to be our Taurus TPN, and this is instead of extending that out, and they're both using SDVOE technology, and I'll touch on that in just a minute. The TPX is using point-to-point. The TPN is doing that over a 10 gig network, which means that you can truly fix any size room, any odd configuration or anything like that. You're going to be able to get it done with that TPN. So let's talk about some of those different scenarios. The first one is your simple BYOD rooms, your bring your own device rooms. And for a true BYOD experience, we need anybody to be able to walk in with their laptop or their MacBook, their Surface Pro, whatever it is that they have, and be able to plug in via USB-C and have access to all the peripherals in the room and all of the displays. And of course, not have to worry about their laptop running out of power halfway through the presentation. And the model for that is going to be the OG, the Taurus UCX 4x2 HC40. The way the HC40 actually came about is a really great story about, I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago. maybe less than that, maybe 3 or 4. I'll have to double check my timeline. Our CEO, Gergely, was actually touring Microsoft. And Microsoft, the developers and the people that he was touring with said that they had an issue in their rooms. They had these smaller huddle rooms that look very much like this line drawing here, where you've got the table, you walk in, and there's a table up against the wall, a display, maybe 2 on that wall, and then the table juts out and there's chairs around it. So it's that small huddle room. And they were having trouble because everybody had different types of laptops and things, because they had developers coming in from other countries and other manufacturers and things like that. And the meeting rooms just weren't usable. Gergely went back to Budapest, which is where we're located at. Everything is made in Europe and has that European quality. And within 6 weeks, he had what was the HC30. This is now the HC40. It is pretty much the same device. It's just this one has better charging capability. And that's where it came from. And this is where it shines, and is in those small to medium size type huddle rooms. This is your all-in-one room solution. You're going to get those 2 fully featured USB-C inputs, and you're going to be able to do that video, audio, USB, Ethernet, your power delivery. If you want to, you're going to be able to get that 4K 60 444 display on your TVs in there. You're going to be able to do your super speed if you want to. Again, you're going to want to choose between one of those. And these last couple are going to be all of the Taurus products that I am talking about today. They're all going to have access to the Lightware Advanced Room Automation, or LARA software, which will be the last thing we discuss in today's webinar. LARA is going to allow you to set up any type of room control and automation that your rooms may need. All of our Tauruses are going to have that 100-watt fast charging. They're all going to have a customizable welcome screen. So if you want to be able to have something on the screen or a logo when somebody walks into a room, you're going to be able to do that with our welcome screen. And something that we've already mentioned, you're going to have those 2 tiers and hops for each device. And even when we're doing our receivers and transmitters, it's still only going to be 2 total. So let's take a look at what this Taurus looks like. Here is that Taurus UCX HC40 in front and back. So we've got our 2 USB-C ports, and then right next to that we have our HDMI USB-B and I already said our HDMI USB-B inputs there. We also have our 4-port hub over here for your mice and keyboards and things like that. You have your 2 HDMI outs, and then you have a ton of different Ethernet, different ports here. So if you're using something like topology or something like that, you're going to be able to have a my tongue's not working all of a sudden, a designated port to be able to send all of that data out to whatever type of monitoring software you may or may not be using. And this one specifically here is Dante. We have a Dante version of this, and we'll talk a little bit more about when you need some specific audio needs in just a few minutes when we get to our audio section. So we have a Dante and a non-Dante version there. And then, of course, you have your analog audios, you have your RS-232s, your occupancy sensor, and your GPIO ports. And all of those are going to be configurable through the LDC. And, of course, a service USB-A and a micro if you need to service it. And lastly, those input select buttons. So if you want to change the source without going into LDC, you can do that directly from the box. I mentioned the Ethernet ports. I also kind of wanted to show you in the LDC just how much you can control. And we also have an 802.1x certificate available, and we are TAA compliant. I do want to mention both of those. So we're in the LDC. This time we are on our control panel. We're looking at our 4x3 TPX, and we're on the Ethernet. So I wanted to show you, you can actually click on each one of these, including the USB-C inputs. So if you wanted to turn the Ethernet capability off to these two USB-C inputs, you could. And you also have the ability to do some different VLAN presets if you need to do that as well. All right. So let's kind of put that into perspective and see what a room might look like. So we've got a line drawing here. We've got our legend down here at the bottom showing you what our colors are. Most importantly, our USB-C is orange. Our 3.1 is blue. Our 2.0 is kind of this, I think it's a darker blue. And then we've got these other ones here as well, but really want to pay attention to those USB ones. So in here, we've got a phone, which you can actually plug in. Our Samsung phone, any of the Android phones can actually be plugged into a Taurus, as well as iPads. We've got a laptop, an HDMI laptop, an Apple, I think that's an Apple TV, might be a Mac Mini, and then a keyboard. We've also got our network going out here, and then our two displays, a USB speaker, and a USB camera. So just to give you kind of an idea of a typical setup with one of our UCX 4x2 HC40s. Now, when it comes to our HC line of products, we have a ton of different available options for you depending on what you're trying to do. I showed you, of course, our Taurus, which is our Taurus flagship, which is going to have all the different features, but we do have some DCX models that are basically a lot of limited features on there and are not quite as expensive depending on what you're trying to do. Maybe somebody just needed to be able to display and share their screen at a station and not necessarily have access to all the rest of it. That's where a DCX might come in. We also have some HDMI only available options as well. I also showed you that 4x2 option. We do have a 2x1, which is going to give you one USB 1 input and one USB-B HDMI. I don't know why I had trouble with that all the time. So one USB-C input and one USB-B HDMI input on there. Brand new, and I'm gonna go through our Taurus UCX 1x1 C40 real quick, and then I will pause and see if we had any questions. But brand new to this line of our products is the Taurus UCX 1x1 C40, or what we are calling our smart dock. This is a 1x1, so you've got your one USB-C and then your one display out. This is giving you that 3.1 connectivity. It's giving you that charging up to 100 watts. It's passive. It's noiseless. It's giving you the same features that our other Tauruses are, like the welcome screen and dedicated secure corporate and room utility if you need to have that monitoring going out, and Ethernet connectivity. So again, this is we're calling it our smart dock out there. You'll see here, we can see it a little bit better. We've got our USB-C in, you've got your power. You're going to have only a 3-port hub on the smart dock. You've got your HDMI out, your RS-232, and your Ethernet. So this is going to be both an IT and a user solution depending on what you're trying to do. As far as IT, they don't have to worry about downloading drivers, or security or anything like that, and they can also do room control automation. And then users are going to love it because it's pretty quiet, it's got that welcome screen, it's doing the charging, and it's BYOD compatible. So this is going to be able to replace all those docking stations out there that we all know just don't work that well. All right. Any questions on any of that before we move on and start talking about extension problems?
I don't see any new ones popping up in the chat yet. You guys are quiet.
All right. So let's talk about extension problems and how the Taurus can help you with that. Let's take a look at what a typical room might look like. When we're talking about extension problems, usually what starts happening is we run up against that 7-tier barrier, and because you start putting in different extenders. So let's take a look at this example. We've got a MacBook that's 2 tiers. We've got our Taurus that's 2 tiers, and then we put in 2 Icron Rangers, and then into that Icron Ranger a USB hub. That brings us, by the time we are able to get that webcam and the other side of the room plugged in, we're at 8 hops. And that webcam, that MacBook is not going to be able to see and access that webcam. Now, if we take that scenario and we instead put in one of our TPX line of Tauruses, which are using that SDVoE technology to extend it, you'll see now we free up so much because that MacBook's still 2. Each one of these is 1 for a total of 2. So your transmitter's 1, your receiver's 1, and then your webcam out there is 1. So now we're at 5 hops. So where before we were at 8 because we had to add all of those extenders and additional hops in there, with our Taurus product, we're only at 5 hops, and we can actually add more peripherals and different devices into this system. When it comes to our TPX, again, this is using that SDVoE technology, and it is using it point to point. And we have 2 different transmitters and 2 different receivers. So depending on your room, you can mix and match all of these. And let's start talking about them. Let's start with our 4x3 TPX. All of the LDC screens that you've seen so far came from a 4x3 TPX transmitter. This is using, again, that point-to-point technology to extend it. You do need to extend it using Cat 6A or 7. We do recommend shielded cabling. Again, you're going to be able to get those 2 USB-C ports and your 2 HDMI USB-B, which can get you that 4K 60 444 if you want it. You're going to be able to do your outputs. You're going to have 1 that is going to go to your receiver, and then 2 that can go to displays. And you're going to get the ability to add up to 8 different peripherals because you're going to have 2 4-port hubs, because you're going to have 1 4-port hub on the transmitter and you're going to have 1 4-port hub on the receiver for a total of 8. You're also going to be able to do that charging just like all the rest of the Tauruses. You're going to be able to power that receiver either from the transmitter or at the receiver, depending on what you want to do. And again, combined, they're only going to take up 2 hops or tiers. Here's a look at that TPX. So as before we saw with the HC40, we've got our 2 USB-C ins and our 2 HDMI USB-B. We've got our 4-port hub. We've got our TPX out. So this is what's going to that receiver and transmitting that data by 6/6A/7 shielded cable. We've got our 2 HDMI outs. I forgot that one, didn't. And then again, you've got all of your other things that our other Taurus had, including your audio outs, your GPIOs, and being able to switch right there at the device. For some of you who have sharp eyes, you may see something missing, and that is the occupancy sensor. And that is because the occupancy sensor has been moved to the receivers on the TPX line. So you still get the occupancy sensor, it's just on the receiver. If that 4x3 was too big for you, we have a 2x1 version that basically gives you all the same benefits, everything that we've been talking about. And here's a look at what that 2x1 is going to look like. You've got your input, your USB-C and your HDMI USB-B, and then our 1 out that is going to our TPX receiver there. Oh, and of course, you've got your 4-port hub there, which is going to give you a total of 8. Those are our 2 transmitters. So we've got our 4x3 transmitter, and then we've got our 2x1 transmitter, depending on the size of your room. Now we also have 2 different receivers. First one up is this TPX ROX 107, which is going to be our simple receiver. This one is going to be doing USB 2.0, so this is not going to be able to get you that 3.x super speed. We do have a version coming out soon that should be able to do that 3.x super speed. You are going to be able to get that 4K 60 if you want. You're going to have those 4 additional ports, so for a total of 8. Your occupancy sensor is now over here, and you also have an RS-232 and an analog out on this receiver if you want it. If that's not big enough for you, we have our 3x3 TPX receiver. And this is really, really cool because you can do USB host switching at the receiver. So with this 3x3, you can actually pretty much put that rack behind the TV. Still using that point-to-point Cat 6A/7 cabling with shielded cabling. You're going to get your one input that is coming from the TPX unit, and then you're going to have 2 additional HDMI USB-Bs, and then you have the ability to have 3 additional display outputs there, and of course your analog audio out and your additional 4-port device on there. So let's see how that kind of translates in the real world. Here's an example of using a 2x1 with that TPX ROX 107. So this is a very simple solution here. We've got on the table end, we've got a laptop, an HDMI laptop, and a keyboard and a mouse going into that TPX, coming out over here to the receiver. And then on that receiver, we've got a camera, a speaker bar, and a display. So you can see here that's a very simple, but let's go ahead and say that maybe that's not quite enough. Well, here's what that might look like with a 4x3. So in this example, we've got a 4x3 and we've brought in an additional laptop, looks like a Mac Mini, and a USB-C phone. So some type of Android, or even the newer, the 16s, I think 15 and 16 Apples. And this is giving you that 4x3, which is allowing you to have those extra sources. Again, going into that simple receiver with a USB camera bar and display, that any one of these different sources are going to be able to utilize along with this keyboard and the mouse. So let's see what that might look like if we mix and match our 2x1 with our 3x3 receiver. So with our 2x1 TPX here, we've got a USB-C laptop plugged in there, and then another laptop through the HDMI USB-B, and then of course our keyboard and our mouse plugged in there at the table. Then all the way over at the display with our 3x3, we've got a Teams computer that we've got plugged in there, and we've got this little Nuke speaker going on here, as well as a USB camera and a display. And with the way that 4x3 is set up, like I said, we can kind of move that rack behind the TV, and we can also host switch directly at this 3x3 if we want. So let's make it even more complicated. Let's do a little bit more. Now let's take a look if we did that 4x3 with a 3x3. So again, our 4x3 is set up the same way it was before, only now with that 4x3 and with that 3x3, you can see here we can get some additional displays and everything. All of these 4 devices over here. These 4 devices over here are going to be able to access all of this down here. And yes, Teams computers. We work with Teams computers, and we have different automations that we can do with them as well. All right, that was a lot. So next we're going to jump in and talk about audio control, but I will pause again and see if Allison has any questions that have come up.
Yep, we just had somebody ask if we're going to talk about the Taurus HCM40 in this class. The answer is yes. I know we're excited too, and I will save the rest for you to answer when you get around to the HCM.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we're definitely going to hit the HCM40. All right, let's talk about audio control. So we have some specialty Taurus that can help you with your audio control. But before we even do that, I want to bring up our LDC again here. And I want to show you that even with our base Taurus models that don't have any of the audio specialties in them, you still have access to do a few things in regards to audio. So here we are on our cross points. Again, we're on a 4x3. Where before we looked at our inputs and our outputs, this time we are down on our audio cross points and we're looking at our audio out. And you can actually do some different things with your audio ins as well. But you can kind of come over here and see that you can mute that. You can rename it if you want. You can set up some auto select settings if you want. And you can even mess with the volume and the balance. So that is just all the Tauruses. This is base what all Tauruses can do. Now, that brings us into the big D word of Dante, because the next thing that everybody always wants is to have Dante. And we have two different Dante versions available to you. The first one is the one that I've kind of already mentioned, and that is the HC40D for Dante. And this is going to be the same HC40 that we just talked about. It's just now it's got an extra plug that's going to be able to do that Dante audio for you. Now, with this one, with the HC40D, it is only one way. So it's a Dante port, but it's only one direction at a time. If that is not enough for you, we have a bridged Dante Taurus. Excuse me. This is also an all-in-one room solution. It is going to have a built-in DSP in it. So you are truly going to be able to do all of the different kinds of things that you can do in a normal DSP and through that bridged audio. You're also going to be able to rename those audio channels, which I know is a really big deal because a lot of times there's a lot of them and they're all very generic and it's hard to tell what is what. And again, I've talked about this a little bit, but with our bridge Dante, you can use our LARA tracking function, and we have some different integration partners with Sennheiser and Shure and Yamaha, and you can do some really cool things with some PTZ cams if you're into that kind of thing. All right. Any questions on audio before we get to what everybody really wants to talk about?
We did get a question which will lead us to the Taurus TPN. So I will save the elaboration on that one for you. You guys are you're getting ahead of the game.
All right. Let's talk about the HCM40 and extended desktop. So when it comes to extended desktop needs, one of the big things that we need is for it to work on a Mac or a PC. That Mac, we need it to work on that Mac. And then we need it to act like a true BYOD room, a bring your own device, where whether it's a Mac or whatever, they can come in and they can use it with a true extended desktop, meaning that they've got their, whatever they're plugged in, their laptop and that screen, and then they've got two separate screens to use, just like what most people have in their home office. And here in the picture, we can see it's two separate screens, but they're sharing that one picture, but each screen is separate. And that'll make a little bit more sense if that's getting confusing in just a second. So our Taurus UCX 4x3 HCM40 again is an all-in-one room solution. So it's that one room box. It's giving you that true dual screen extended desktop. And the way it's doing that is with DisplayPort and DisplayLink. And that's how it's also working for your Macs. There is a little bit of setup to that. There is a couple of things that you have to download to basically make it work. But it's going to truly be an extended desktop. And it's a true output of dual HDMI 4K 60. And this Taurus here has already won us three different awards. So just to really kind of spell that out, what we're talking about, here's the different ways that you can typically extend or mirror. So the first example is you've got your host device, and then your displays just automatically do whatever is on that host device screen. And all of our Taurus products can do that. Your second scenario is where you've got your host device and you've got one screen on there, and then all of your displays are doing another screen. So maybe your host screen has Outlook up, but your displays have a PowerPoint up. And then what the HCM40 is going to be able to do is truly let you have 3 separate screens, one on that host device, and then 2 and 3 for up to a total, so 2 screens with the host device for a total of 3 screens. All right, any questions on the HCM40? Because I know Allison said you had some.
I'll just go back and cover the one that we already had. So somebody asked if it was new. The answer is yes, very, very new. It is shipping now, though. So if you need one, we got it. As far as the user manual, I did inquire about where we can find that. I thought it was originally on the Taurus UCX user manual, but it is not. So if you need it, keep in touch with me. I'm looking for it actively. And then somebody asked about third-party control system and how it integrates with Taurus. Really cool thing about Lightware is that we have a completely open API, which means we can be controlled by basically anybody. If you've ever looked at any one of our user manuals, they're basically 95% API commands, and like 5% actually getting everything set up, right? So it's very simple. It'll integrate very similarly to the original Taurus UCX as well as the UCX TPX.
All right, was that it?
For right now, yes. I'll wait for more to pop up.
All right. Moving right along then, let's talk about large rooms and spaces. So when we're talking about large rooms, there's some different things that can come up. You need to be able to extend that signal to any size room, and there can be some really weird shaped rooms. We could be talking about really big executive conference rooms or maybe something like an auditorium. And we really need to be able to have unlimited hosts and displays that can potentially grow with it and multiple location access, especially when it comes to things like auditoriums. So that's where our TPN line of Tauruses come into effect. TPN is also using SDVoE technology. However, this time it's using it over a 10 gig network. So the TPX devices are using it point to point. TPN is doing it over a 10 gig network. And just like with our TPX, we currently have 2 transmitters and 2 receivers, and we've got more products coming out throughout the year. Here's kind of an example of what a Taurus TPN room would look like, and we're going to dive in and kind of see a little bit more in just a second. But with our TPN, again, you're going to be able to do almost unlimited hosts and display. You're going to be able to do all that USB-C stuff that we've talked about using that SDVoE and our Icron chips that are in our devices. With the TPN right now, you're going to be able to do USB 2.0, and you can still get that 4K 6444, but it does not have the 3.x right now at this time, but the 3.x is coming down the line. And just like with everything else, you've got access to the Lightware advanced room automation, and you can mix and match these. And there are some different DCX models as well. So truly, you can mix and match and get any type of room that you want. If you are coming to InfoComm in July, I highly recommend coming to our booth and seeing the setup so you can see that it is truly like lightning fast and scaled seamless switching. Like, it's unbelievable how fast it is. And what's really great when we're talking about Taurus is that this is truly making you future ready. So this is going to allow you to be able to add on later. And that's using that Icron technology. You're going to be able to do things on that device side as well as the host side. And you can use any and all SDVoE receivers in with this technology. So as long as it uses SDVoE, it's going to work in your TPN systems. So let's take a look at kind of how this can grow. So here we are looking at a table input with just a single display using our TPN. So we've got our laptop over here and another laptop going through the HDMI USB-B. We're using this 4-port hub for a keyboard and mouse. And we're going into our CTU, which is going to help us control all of the different devices on the network. And again, anything that uses SDVoE is going to be able to be controlled by this. And you'll see here we've got a pair of extenders over here doing a HDMI PC room going into that cloud matrix and then out into an RX 107 because again with a TPN it's using that 10 gig network and it needs a transmitter and a receiver. And that's giving us coming into our USB camera bar and our display. So let's make this a little bit more complicated. So now let's take this kind of same setup, but you'll see here we added a extender over here and then a PTZ cam. And we can just keep adding on to this system and make it as difficult as we want it. So in this scenario here, we've got dual HDMI room PCs. We've got multiple different displays. We've got our PTZ cam over here. When we can just keep going and keep building and making these rooms just more and more complex and basically create any type of room you could possibly want to create. All right, I do think we had some questions on TPN.
None specifically. We did have somebody ask just about a project, so I'm just going to type that in the chat. If you guys do have specific project questions that you need help with and you were looking to switch over to Lightware or maybe just want some advice, either please save those for the end or shoot me an email. But other than that, I think, let me scroll to the top and make sure I didn't miss anybody. All right. Nope, we're good.
All right. Well, before we start talking about LARA, we are hitting the home stretch here. We're going to talk about LARA and then open it up to any questions that you may be having. But the one thing that I want to make sure that you guys know is that we have a Taurus for that. So depending on whether or not you've got that small to medium huddle room that one of our HC models would work perfect for, or if you've got a little bit larger room that our TPX and that point-to-point would work for, or even rooms that are huge and need that TPN. And especially for your specialty scenarios like needing Dante or to have that dual extended screen. So now let's talk about room control and automation. So this is a thing that's coming up more and more in today's world. It didn't used to be that big of a deal, but people want things to just work automatically now. And one of the big things that we want to make sure that you know is that we are working with different partners all of the time and creating built-in integrations to make things easier for you. I mentioned earlier about Sennheiser, Shure, and Yamaha. We have some built-in modules in LARA, which will help you to really make those PTZ cameras work to the best of their ability. It basically has to do, and some of you may have heard of things like this, but it sets up a grid in the room, and when it hears it with the microphone, it basically triangulates it, and it stays in that grid unless it hears something in a totally different square. So you'd no longer get that PTZ cam that's kind of constantly doing this and going in and out. It's staying in that square unless the microphone re-triangulates it. So some really cool things there. We also have some integrations with Barco Click Share. We are a certified control plugin for QSys. We are a Cisco partner. So if you have any type of Cisco codecs, we're going to be able to set up all sorts of room controls and automations for you, as well as we have some different integrations with Microsoft Teams rooms, Poly, HP, Logitech, and Lenovo. And right off the bat, just without even getting into LARA and actually having to create anything and create any automations, I wanted to kind of just show you what you can do just using LDC. So again, we are looking at my TPX. This time we're back. I think we were here before. We're on the control panel and we're looking, we looked at Ethernet earlier. Now we're looking at GPIO, and you can see you have access to each of the GPIO ports. You can see whether or not it is currently high or low, and you can reset that by changing and you can change the input, the output, and reset that and change the name if you want to. You can also do this with the occupancy sensor. So you can see here, we're back on control, but now we're on our occupancy sensor. And you see you have the ability to do that as well with your occupancy sensor, as well as your RS-232 devices. So you can do the same thing for your RS-232 devices. And I had a screenshot for that, and I'm not sure what happened, but the same thing with the RS-232. So if there is truly a port on your Taurus, you can absolutely go in there and configure and do things with that port. But a lot of times that's not going to be enough, and that's where LARA is going to come in and handle it. LARA is our Lightware Advanced Room Automation software. It is future-proof, so this is allowing you to really create these rooms and update them as needed. It uses open source modules, and we are creating our own modules all the time and have them available for download on our website. However, if there isn't a module available, you can create them yourself in LARA, and it's really little to no programming, though if you know JavaScript or JavaScript Node specifically, you're going to be able to fly through LARA. And we do have training that we offer, so you can get in touch with me. I'm going to make sure you have all of my information at the end of this, and we can get you trained on LARA if you're looking for that. Because of LARA, this is where our open AP shines, and this allows us to work with all of those third-party controller systems, including QSys and Crestron. We will work well with Crestron controllers, and it is web browser configurable, so you don't have to download anything. You just have to enable the Taurus to do it. So again, you're going to be able to create any type of first, last, detect automation sequences. You can create buttons. You can create touch panels, user-controlled touch panels if you want. You can have all sorts of things that you can set up in LARA. And it's going to be the Taurus UCX, again, you just enable it in LARA because LARA is embedded in it. And LARA's an innovative and progressive room automation platform is truly created for AV integrators. So it's going to be able to give you what you need. So let's take a look at that and see kind of what it looks like. So it does look a little bit different than what we've been looking at so far, because this is a different program. You go into the web to do this, and you launch it through Taurus. You'll see here you have two different menu options when it comes to LARA. You have your browse modules and your status board, and we're going to take a look at both. So your browse modules is where you could start creating your own modules, or you can download modules. And modules consist of different things. Right here, we're looking at a Cisco script module, which is allowing the Cisco device to do some different room controls and automations. But you are also able to create different driver modules, different service modules. So there's 5 different modules that you can create depending on what you are trying and needing to do. And depending on what you're trying to need to do, you may need to create multiple modules to basically talk to each other. And again, we have all sorts of LARA training. If you want to reach out to me, I can get you set up. So that's where this is the area where you would create or modify a different module. If we come over here to our status board, this is where you can see the modules and different things that you already have going and how they're doing. So here we can see the Cisco instance, and everything's green here, letting me know that this is running just fine. If there was red or something else going on there, I would be able to take a look at it. And here's down here, you're always going to be able to basically go in and see the code. So if you know JavaScript, you would be able to go in and read that. And you can see we were having some issues connecting to that codec there, probably because when we ran this, we didn't actually have the codec connected anymore. So you can kind of get an idea there and see what is going on. All right. Any questions on LARA?
No new ones yet. Quick note on that screenshot, that's from my setup, and the answer is yes, those errors are from me unplugging and then shipping away my Cisco rootkit. So anybody wondered what that was from me.
I figured. All right, then guys, that is like we are right on time. Not bad for getting started about 25 minutes late. I want to repeat a couple of things here for you. The renewal credits are available. That is potentially one CTS, one CTSD, or one CTSI. Allison should be about to put the quiz link in the chat for you, and hopefully I think she's going to put the registration for the USB Masterclass in March if you want to attend that. So she'll put that quiz in there. Please complete that quiz by end of day on Friday, and then give us 2 weeks to send out those certificates for you, and then you'll turn those certificates in. Here is our different information, and I will get this in the chat as well. I lost the link to the chat when I got back in. Can somebody resend it to me so I can upload some things? Other than that, question and answer time. Who has any questions or answers that they didn't get throughout the presentation that maybe they want to have now? And I'm gonna
any new ones. I'm dropping that registration link in the chat. If you guys are having problems with the quiz as well, I dropped that in there first. Please let me know. That's going to be the form that I dropped first.
All right, now I'm coming over to the chat to put in our contact information. So if you have any training needs, if you need to learn how to do anything or have any type of training related questions, including if you have a group of a couple of people and we can do our master classes specifically for you, just reach out to me and let me know and we can get that scheduled for you. If you have specific projects out there that you have questions on, or maybe need advice, or just want somebody to kind of look over it, make sure everything looks good, that's where you are going to want to potentially reach out to Allison. Though I will say I would go to this one that I'm typing in right now first, because if Allison happens to be out training somebody or something like that, she's not always going to be able to get a hold of you, right, or to always get right back to you. So if you go to fse.na@lightware.com, that goes to all of our field sales engineers, and they will make sure they get that answered for you. Same thing as far as training. We have a training one that I am putting in here as well. So if you have any training related questions or need additional training or help finding anything, just let us know. And as mentioned, as soon as I get the information back from Rave on who attended, I will send out an email where I will put the PowerPoint there. So if you want the PowerPoint, you'll be able to get that. I'm also going to supply Rave with that. So they said this launch page that you came to watch this will remain up indefinitely. So you will be able to come back and rewatch this video. So that's where you will get the recording. The slides should be there as well. So you might want to bookmark this page going on so that you can always come back here and review it if you have any questions. All right, has anybody had any questions or anything that has popped up that we need to address? No? All right, and we're only 3 minutes over. Not bad. We made good time. All right. Unless there's anything else, Emily, do we need to do? I think we're good to go and just sign off.